Welcome to The Explainer. So if you've ever managed a legacy wireless network, you know the grind of manual configuration. Today, we're going to break down exactly how you can bring that entire network into the world of Cisco DNA Center. Think of it as trading in all that command line complexity for some seriously powerful, centralized automation. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle the big why. What you actually get out of centralizing. Then we'll get our hands dirty, starting with onboarding your wireless LAN controllers and then the access points. After that, we get to the really cool stuff, automating your security with ISC. And we'll wrap it all up by provisioning the whole setup and, of course, making sure everything is working just right. You can think of this as our blueprint for the whole process. We're going to follow this exact flow, starting with discovering the WLC and taking it all the way to having fully provisioned access points. This is really the journey from having a bunch of disconnected hardware to running a unified, intelligently managed network. Okay, so first things first, why even go through all this trouble? What is the real payoff for bringing your existing wireless gear into DNA Center? Let's dig into the key benefits. Look, you're not just getting a new dashboard here. You are unlocking fundamentally better ways to run your network. It works whether you're using a centralized model or a Flex Connect model for your branches. You can finally implement things like N+1 high availability or do rolling AP upgrades without causing a massive outage. But you know what the biggest win is? It's that single pane of glass. You can manage your classic Air OS controllers and your brand new Catalyst 9800s all from one spot, letting the system translate your intent into the right config. You don't have to be a deep CLI expert anymore. So let's jump into our first big step, getting the brain of your wireless network, the Wireless LAN Controller, or WLC, into the DNA Center inventory. This is all about discovery and getting it provisioned. Now, before you can discover anything, your WLC has to be ready to talk. That means getting the basics in place. Enabling SSH or Telnet with your CLI credentials, setting up SNMP for monitoring, and having a management interface configured. But really pay attention to that last one. For any modern Catalyst 9800 controllers, netconf is an absolute must. It's the structured API-driven language that really enables all the automation we're about to see. And here's exactly what that looks like inside the discovery tool. You've got your usual spots for CLI and SNMP credentials. But see that netconf option? That is so critical. It's not just some other protocol. It's the modern programmatic interface that DNA Center absolutely has to have to unlock its full power on those Catalyst 9800s. Seriously, if you're using modern hardware, this is not optional. So, once your WLC is discovered and shows up in your inventory, it's time to provision. DNA Center makes this super easy with this clean 4-step wizard. You just assign the controller to a physical site, define its configuration and role, tweak any advanced settings if you need to, and then you get a final summary to review everything. And this right here, this just perfectly illustrates the magic of intent-based networking. On the left, you've got the summary from that wizard. That's your intent. High-level stuff like what role the device has, what AAA server to use, which SSIDs to broadcast. Then on the right, you see the result, the actual nitty-gritty device-specific command line configuration that DNA Center generated and pushed to the controller. You just say what you want, and the platform figures out how to do it. Awesome, the controller's in. So now that the WLC is provisioned, the next logical step is to onboard the devices that are actually creating your wireless network, the access points, or APs. Okay, so when it comes to onboarding APs, you've basically got two ways to go. There's the traditional method, where an AP boots up and uses something like DHCP option 43 to find its WLC first. Then DNA Center learns about the AP through that controller. But the much more modern, automated way is plug and play, or PNP. In this scenario, the AP is smart enough to find DNA Center first. Then the center can claim it and tell it which WLC to join. It's a way more direct and scalable approach, especially for zero-touch deployments. The PNP workflow really boils down the whole deployment into this beautiful 3-stage process. First, the AP gets automatically onboarded into your inventory. Second, you claim it and assign it to a site, which you can do manually or with a rule. And finally, DNA Center pushes down the right site-specific configuration. This is literally the blueprint for doing zero-touch deployments at scale. All right, now for one of my favorite parts, because this is where the power of platform integration just really shines. We're going to see how to automate all that tedious security configuration by tying in Cisco's Identity Services Engine, or ISE. Man, if you've ever had to do this manually, you know the pain. Logging into ISE, creating a new network device, typing in shared secrets, configuring protocols. It's a nightmare of potential typos. Well, DNA Center completely automates this whole thing. It uses APIs to automatically register the WLC in ISE as a network device, which just gets rid of a massive source of human error. And it's not just adding the device name either. DNA Center configures all the critical security protocols for you. It sets up Radius for your user authentication, TAGX Plus for device admin access, SNMP for monitoring, and even your TrustSec settings if you're doing advanced segmentation. This makes sure your security policy is rock solid and consistent from the moment that device comes online. Okay, let's bring it home. We're moving into the final phase of our workflow, pushing all this configuration out to the devices and, just as important, verifying that everything is working exactly the way we planned. For an access point, this final step is pretty straightforward. You assign the AP to a site in your hierarchy, and that's the magic step that tells it which WLC to join and which SSIDs to broadcast. Then you pick a predefined RF profile to control how the radios behave, and you hit deploy. The system takes it from there, and you can just watch its status change from planned to fully provisioned. Now, this idea of mapping APs to a physical location, like a specific floor on a building map, this is absolutely crucial. This is the bridge between the real world and your network's logical setup. When you place an AP on the third floor of the San Jose building, you're not just making a pretty picture. You are actually kicking off automation that tells the WLC exactly which AP group to use and which SSIDs to start broadcasting, all based on that physical location. So if there's one thing you take away from this whole explainer, it's really summed up perfectly right here. Cisco DNA Center is, at its heart, a translation engine. It's designed to take your high-level business goal, something simple like, I want secure employee Wi-Fi on the third floor. And it converts that into all the specific, complex, vendor-specific code needed to make it a reality. And then it deploys it for you. And that really just leaves us with one final thought. We've walked through this entire process, from discovery all the way to verification. So now I want you to think about your own network, all the time you spend on those manual wireless tasks. Where could this kind of automation have the biggest, most immediate impact for you and your team?